Live streaming, better for the same. First order of business is, meeting minutes. Can I get a motion? Motion. Second. Second. Any comments, changes? Concerns? All those in favor? Aye. Let's, move on to our annual review of corporate policy. So, I don't think this is new for anybody. We've done this, many years in a row. I think the only policy changing, I believe, is procurement policy. So we can talk about that. I know, John and Anders were at the finance committee meeting where we talked about it as well. So, just for a benefit, Ashley, if you want to, or if you want to give a context.
On procurement policy. So the procurement policy, based on discussion with the board and council, the proposed edits to the procurement policy are mainly in section 3. And it's namely, what you'll see in your packet would be an amendment to change it to where it states the approval of 2 CAC officers. The revisions in your packet would say 1 CAC officer and 1 director. In the finance committee discussion today, we had a recommendation from council and it was supported by a positive recommendation from the finance committee to amend that to say either 2 CAC officers or
2 officers, which is traditionally what we had, or in the event there's not, some language in the event there's not 2 officers present, 1 officer and like director, or whatever, and maybe we'll come up with even more general language. I just want to think about it, but I basically want to cover it so we don't have to do these technical amendments just because a position might be vacant or not.
Or have to bring a procurement to the board.
yeah, so that's
For
the second
approval,
step of it.
That's
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing.
$65,000. And because we didn't have 2 officers who could sign it, we had to bring it to the board level, which just inhibits that quick, nimble activity.
Yeah, so the other change was also raising the threshold at which proposals would come to the board, and that's
For the directors.
100,000 and above.
Great.
So, maybe just take them one by one. Code of ethics policy. These are all in our packet. The code of ethics policy doesn't change. EEO policy, whistleblower policy do not change. Real property acquisition policy does not change. Real property disposition policy doesn't change. Simply the procurement policy. So I don't know if anybody had any concerns or if you guys want to take some time to look at each one, but I think literally, I mean,
And I've reviewed them, we do each year. There have been no statutory changes that require any other changes. I always look at them too to see if there's any nits or
Yeah.
recommendations or anything, and nothing jump out at me, to be fair. We have changed these occasionally over the years, and we'll continue to do so. We can change them anytime we want. It's on our calendar to do it once a year because that's good governance, but we could do it next month if somebody thinks of something too.
and we did, I thought we changed the EEO policy.
The EO we might have done only in the last few years,
Yeah.
right? I think, and
Yeah.
that may be why
That
we're
was
thinking
dated more
that.
recently.
Yes. Yep.
So, coming out of this meeting, we need a motion, to recommendation for the board. Is that really
That's what we're doing.
Sure, as a
And
recommendation.
take them collectively?
I think, let's take the procurement policy separately. And just, if you guys are comfortable, the 3 of us were at finance committee, but, with raising the threshold to $100,000 and then essentially making that technical clarification that an officer and director or 2 officers could, approve that procurement. If you're comfortable with that, I think that's what we'll be recommending to the board.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So, and then in terms of the remaining corporate policies, if you're comfortable, I think we can just take them en masse and recommend to the board that we keep them the way they are. If I could get a motion to do that.
I make that. Second.
All in favor?
Sure.
Yeah, just procedurally, the one that goes to the board each year has to is procurement. There's a requirement in the law that procurement actually gets approved by the board, and our policy provides that.
Good.
These others are just to report to the board that you reviewed them as governance, and in our good governance practice,
Okay.
there are no recommended changes at this time.
And we're solving any kind of administrative issues there and practical problems that policies sometimes create. And we're dealing with that with this issue of, one, tweaking the levels for directors, and two, adding directors as an appropriate approval. Right? That's
And
good.
the audit committee did also review the three policies at the top. Actually, the code of ethics,
Hmm.
whistleblower, and I believe EEO as well.
Good. Has whistleblower been, used?
Not.
I don't think
recent.
it's been used.
Are you making sure the employees are aware that it's an opportunity for them?
It is in our policy handbook, and the handbook is provided to all new employees, and we also do an annual training on all of the applicable
Good.
policies.
I think it's a good thing.
I think our next, order of business is the board compliance. I don't think. I thought there was more stuff.
It is double-sided, so just as a heads up, we had some printer difficulties, so, stuff is double-sided, so you do have
Yes,
your,
yes.
the printer was messing with us, so we got it done, but it's a work in progress. You have the board performance, about
The board-
confidential evaluation
so
22.
are you- Yeah, are you trying to get us to do that before? Is this going to the board?
So these are an FYI, these are the conflict of interest policy was brought in the board packet last month as a flag that this is gonna be due on the 22nd. So this is also a reminder, coming up that the conflict of interest policy is due, and then the evaluation of board performance will also be due shortly.
And you probably have already started getting the.
Yes, conflict of interest, I was actually just going to. Yeah, was spreadsheet, the only missing.
So the confidential board evaluation forms will go out. That's this guy,
Mhm.
so that's just we don't have to do anything about that right now.
No.
We'll get it back. Conflict of interest forms, those have gone out. People are starting to submit.
And
them
what's the
back.
due date of that?
22nd, yep, is what Maria issued.
1 second.
And what we do with those, we get them in and then we do a summary, we bring it back to this committee, if you remember, and then we do a memo to the board each year that talks about if, based on the inputs and knowledge of staff, or someone's told us, there's any potential conflicts. And then the governance committee reviews and then approves those conflicts moving forward.
ABO board member training status, so, that is one where I think all of us are probably lacking.
No, there's a bunch of people that are compliant.
Well, we're all in technical compliance, but the best practice recommendation is to do it every 3 years, I believe.
Yes.
So I know I am outside that 3-year window now.
Me too, but
I
I'm
think-
aiming for it.
But what is the requirement? You just do it once?
So you have to do it within 12 months of your initial appointment, and that's so the
And that-
actual law
Then every 3 years after that?
is the ABO's guidance with respect to the public authorities law. So ABO has issued like additional guidance.
So I've done it, I've done it at least 3 times now for various,
So
it's
stupid.
painless, it's a half an hour out of your day. It's just like
The CLA.
So,
They closed, I think, registration for the 23rd of October, right? But then they did repost the November dates.
I think if we just every month, just send a really friendly reminder to people like, hey, just heads up, this is available, you know, you're in technical compliance, here it is, Avedon's way better than anybody else, Castellana's still good, Heather's still good.
Yeah.
So it's just, everybody else underneath that could technically, you know, take it and put us all into a better compliance standing.
And as far as the conflict of interest, well, I'm in the same group.
So that's great. Um. So yeah, I would just even just not even bother Castellana and Avedon with reminders or Heather. But the rest of us could get reminders that when the ABO training is monthly until. So review of public documents posted to the website, like this is just the Paris.
Just the annual review of
Are we
what's posted
supposed
on
to
the
do that?
website.
Like, is that part of our,
Just part of our compliance.
okay,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah, so, staff went through the website and made sure that all the items on the memo are on the list, so we are fully compliant with all of the materials that are.
and should we just make note to the board that?
This
that-
memo, I believe, is in the board packet as well, so yeah, we can note for the board that we did this
Because I
review.
know we have a couple new members and a couple of, you know, recent appointees, in the last year or two. Beyond Richard and, Toyin. So it might just be helpful. We make mention of like that. Here's the public document link, if you want to see them, see what we post every year. It's all there. And, there's nothing else on this one, I'll move for the next. Yeah. All right, committee charter. We have reviewed this annually and have, in some cases, changed it, over the last 20 years that I've been on this committee and board. One of the things that, and this maybe would be for you, Anders, is you look at it like maybe doing a strategic session of the board again. We could put our committee charter into the context of our strategic mission, like we could look at each of the committees and their charter and their mission and what we're trying to get out of the governance committee. I find sometimes that there's overlap, potential redundancy, and then other times, like I feel like the governance committee is doing things that finance should be doing and vice versa. When I sit on both of the committees, but
It might be a function of the membership being similar.
yeah. So, I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at this, but I have no desire to mess with our committee charter at this point. I mean, we have looked at it pretty exhaustively over the years.
Good by me.
Me too.
Other business. Is there anything else to get it?
Of what?
The number and structure of the committees?
Yes, that is,
Sorry.
you teed it up really well. So you have on page 32, You have the memo with respect to the board members that are up for reelection and or provisionally appointed and up for a vote into, office. So you have 8 members total on your presentation. on your memo. And so that'll have a resolution in the board packet for tomorrow for those 8.
And
Do you have a membership, attendance list? Do you keep an attendance list?
We do keep a list of people who have responded and then the minutes have, who's attended.
Can you just
each.
give me a summary?
Mhm.
Thanks.
and I was worried that all 8 of those folks were gonna be, having the same term expiration, but it looks like Joanne and Richard will have a 2026 term.
So Tom and I discussed that and technically by the bylaws, there's a 3-year term. So we could make a bylaw amendment, but that wasn't part of this discussion as of yet.
Yeah, so the bylaws don't provide for staggered terms naturally. A lot of corporations do. We're probably going used to that. They don't. We could also do an amendment to the bylaws. But we thought it would be good to at least, let's get this done, and then maybe in a larger context, there that might be something you wanna change in the bylaws as well.
I mean, last time we had a situation like this, we just had people like me voluntarily go take a 2-year term.
So the board can modify the bylaws until the next members meeting. So what happens is if we do that.
Can't you just have someone elected for a staggered term and not, can't the board just define the term independently of the bylaws and just say,
And that's one interpretation.
In conflict.
The bylaws say the board shall elect directors for a 3-year term. And then they'll fill vacancies, so someone could resign. But we could change the bylaws to be more clear in that. We did a bylaw, well, what we did last time is just say, because the board,
why don't you just change the bylaws to say, yeah, 3-year term or
as the board may direct.
or a term that the board directs, meet the needs of the corporation, something,
Okay,
something like that. And then we
You
can
were
work,
saying members have to ratify. We've done that before.
yeah, so we would do it at the next member meeting.
I think it's fine, and then we're just gonna move towards a staggered board, so we don't have a onslaught of expirations at the same time.
So ratify the new bylaws at the next one.
Is this a problem? I'm trying to, look, I mean, how many 4s, 5s, and 6s do we have?
So this is if the summary is a little bit different than what we have on the
Oh, there it
slate.
is. There's the
Because we
summary.
were originally proposing to have people have 2-year terms, Toyin and Richard. After Tom and I had the discussion, I did put the resolution to make them all 2027, so it would bump it up to 8
8 and 27.
expiring in 2027.
Okay, so needless, can we or can't we do if we did this modification now?
Yeah.
Is this for subsequent, or could we?
No, we can do
modify
it now, and the board can do it, has power, we'll just have to have it.
Let's do that,
ratified.
because I just don't think it's good governance to have 8 people expire at the same time.
It isn't, yeah.
Right, that's not good. Must be. What's that? That's good.
So for the resolution for
Sure.
tomorrow, for the board, do I modify
change
that now?
I'll
Okay.
change it, yeah.
Okay. And then do we bring the bylaws amendment discussion to the board too as well?
Yeah, because we're gonna have. yeah,
Okay, as part of that, okay.
I'll make it part of the same resolution.
Are we gonna have a meeting before the annual meeting? So we could do the bylaw amendment at that point.
There's a governance meeting before the annual meeting, but there isn't currently a board meeting slated before the next members
There is
meeting.
not, okay.
No. And the governance has to actually be scheduled. We have it proposed for a November meeting, but we don't have it scheduled yet.
Right, so then now can we talk about structure of committees?
Yes.
So I thought. If it wasn't last meeting, it was the meeting before, Anders did a good job of recommending that we needed more people to.
Apparently it wasn't that good a job. It sounded good.
Well, Richard Sneesman showed up at finance and.
Well, he was put on with a
And John's
specific,
committee?
yeah, no, having people.
No, I said
order-
you're already on it,
Yeah.
you went on to.
I know. I saw you slipped me on.
I think this gives us another opportunity to say that we need. I personally think it's bad governance. We could have more effective governance if we had a diversity of our membership represented on a broad slate of committees.
Yep.
And having a concentration of directors with committee assignments doesn't get the diversity of output and input and all that stuff.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Karen is a lawyer, isn't she?
Karen.
No, Karen's not a lawyer.
So Karen, is, like the CEO, or COO of
Sonia
Humanics Bioscience.
Sonia is the lawyer.
Sonya's
Yes.
an attorney.
We should get her on this committee if we can, I think. We're gonna get,
Sonia's the one that volunteered to be on Liberty Park.
yeah. Um. Audits definitely needs
It
another
needs one,
person.
it is, but it's one short of charter. So at a minimum.
Yeah. But why don't we make a big push for the audit committee?
You're on page 34.
34,
yeah.
yes, yeah.
I'm gonna quit following 35.
That may be a thing.
No, the last page, so it was our attempt at, in a prior governance meeting, there was a request for talking through the composition of the board at its current state. And so the top of the sheet, basically, if people had
Really
one
good.
primary area of representation and you had to put all 14 members in one primary area, where would you put them?
Hmm.
And if people disagree with the breakdown, please, this is a committee discussion. And then the second part of it, strategic initiatives, this was a bit more liberal in saying, like, based on people's bios, where did staff feel like people had?
Is this on a primary
Experience.
basis?
On the bottom, no, on the top, yes, so only one category on the top, but then on the bottom, people could fall into multiple
When you say
categories.
development, do you mean real estate development? Or
Uh,
like fundraising?
I think development, that's more construction, so specific construction experience. I think we're interpreting some of these phrases as if you are a developer. So that's why that's 0.
I would say Richard has some development experience.
Are we skipping, are we?
No,
skipping over
I'm
the-
sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, I
There
thought,
are questions, so I wanted to.
Yeah,
I think I'm open to ideas of how to get a more broad, so we're preaching to the choir here.
well,
So how to get more people engaged and on committees.
I think getting another audit, like, if we could just target audit, even just because we're out of charter.
Mhm.
I don't expect Avedon to do it, but just about everybody else should be on a committee.
And I can help on a second committee or a third committee too, because frankly, membership just doesn't do it. They don't do anything.
We need more out of you. People are talking about you. We need more out of David. Can we get more out of David? He's got 9 terms. He should get more.
Right. He should be doing more. He's gonna hang around that long.
He's gonna hang out.
He
We
needs
got,
to sit and he have more machine.
Yeah. he just wants those breakfast sausages, sandwiches.
What do you think, Anthony?
We are live streaming.
No, I think, so let's work on that, and let's work, audit's very important. David, I appreciate your offer, in all seriousness, I know I'm having a light moment, but in all seriousness, that would be really appreciated. And I think we need direct outreach to, certain people that don't have any committees. to try to, encourage them to find one that fits their interest and their professional competency, and they can add value in that regard.
And the chart should reflect that John has gotten co-opted into being on the governance committee.
It's fine, it's perfectly fine.
How do you get that? That's good.
Because we kept scheduling. the
Now,
meetings.
Right after the finance.
There's another comment I have from a governance perspective, so this is an open question. So the executive committee, I think, should have the chairs of all the committees, not just myself and the immediate past chair. And I don't know if you feel that's good governance or not. At a minimum, I think it should be that, and potentially more, but
I mean, I would completely think it makes sense to have that.
maybe we start a stand, and maybe we could bring that up, recommendation. I don't know, does that, maybe that just goes to, just let them know. I mean, you don't want an executive committee of two, because I think the executive committee has, I haven't looked at the charter in a while, but has all the powers of the board in, interim periods, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's either that or you bring in Heather as vice chair.
I would bring her in as vice chair and the chairs of the other committees, so I would do that. Or the officers.
That's just me and, John.
Yeah.
So,
We need to flesh that out though, so I would think the officers and the chairs.
Tom, do you have any thoughts on that? On the exec committee broadening the,
I think if we're gonna begin to use the executive committee, we gotta do more of a review of that. We just haven't used it in a while.
It's really been dormant since Michael, became
Yeah, And
chair. It used to be used a lot.
and to be fair to the council, I need to look at that. I'm not
Why don't we do
sure.
that? Well, it's a better, I guess, if you could do that, I think that's a valid issue. I don't think having two people on that committee is right. And so if you can look at that, and whether it's some combination of chairs of committees, that's the way our bank does it, or whether it's, because there's not separate board officers. But for the, so I'm just used to that methodology, but if there's a better way to do it, I'm open to better ideas.
But Tom, I agree with you. I mean, I'm on a board where it's heavy use of the executive committee. It makes me uncomfortable. Like it's almost overused.
You don't want to usurp, I personally don't think you want to usurp the committee, the board process. The board process.
The wrinkle here is we are a public authority, so I just need to look at that.
Yeah, let's do that for sure. I think in the past, before we were that designation, I
Right.
think the executive committee met monthly and
Right.
had some consensus building and presented consensus ideas to the board. And we got away from that because we thought it was better governance to have the full deliberation of the board, and I agree with that. And probably it's more important for those, as a public company. But I still think we should flesh that out, because, what can happen is when the board's not meeting, I mean, there are times when you can have the executive committee take action, I think, and at a necessity, and oftentimes execute upon a consensus mandate of the.
yeah, we could delegate to the exec committee
Exactly. Or some fashion,
instead of the finance committee.
right?
No, that's a great suggestion. So are we on to other business?
Yes, we are.
So, the only thought I had, and, I think we probably need to talk to some of the newer members, newer board members, is, I don't know what we do in terms of orienting new board members, what kind of onboarding process we have to educate them on what we do, what, all the great stuff we've done and what we're trying to do, and I just feel like sometimes we get sidetracked and aren't necessarily, and we may be doing a great job of onboarding people, but I think from a helping
What happens when you onboard people? Do you meet with them?
So we did, the only ones that have been recent since, leadership transferred over was, we did a training session. So Richard and Toyin came in, Tom and the team met with them. We gave them basically an orientation handbook. And we walked them through like top level highlights.
I
of
think
our
it was like a
corporate
2.5
activities.
hour,
It was pretty, it was pretty extensive.
it's pretty
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And we did a PDF
It's very
of
hard.
all the
Was
policies.
it Hardy?
All the, yeah.
It was a big.
They had good questions too, Toyin and Richard, so it was.
Sounds like
it
I
was
would
good.
benefit from
Yeah,
that. That sounds good. So is your thought, John, that that should be memorialized in some fashion? But that, I don't know that,
No, I wanted to make sure we were actually
That we
doing,
did it,
doing
yeah.
something. And maybe we could just follow up with them and see how, like, was it meaningful? Was it important? Like, do they feel like they have,
what they needed out of it, yeah.
yeah, did they get something out of it? I feel like both of them have a comfort level that they have a voice
Mhm.
at the table, which I haven't necessarily seen from other new board members who come in and just are reluctant to even, you know, say
Yeah,
anything.
they spoke right on.
Yeah, which I think is helpful. I think
Yeah.
that's exactly what we need and want.
We can definitely follow up and see if there's other things that they feel like they need to know, or if there's other things that would be helpful that they feel like other new members would benefit from, or they could benefit from in the future,
that's
for
good.
sure.
And then, I thought that strategic session we did was awesome, and we should think about doing that like annually.
I think it's good anyway. When did we have it?
February,
Was it really that long?
oh my gosh, yes.
With the
Like
thing-
February
the thing
8th.
with the mayor, where.
Yeah.
the mayor showed up?
I think it's important. I think it's really important and having you know, a time to think about some of these big assets and organizational issues, obviously, but Liberty Park, Quinton Martin Collective, we're at a point now, we own the bus station. You know, it's time to get going, right? So, that being said, we have a letter of intent, so I don't know what that means, but, you know, we've got to execute on these plans and moving forward, and having the space of the moment like that is really good. So I agree with you. So we should shoot for that in February. Maybe you want to bring it up, maybe bring up strategic planning in the board meeting, and then we can have it open for discussion if people have a comment about how often we should do it. And then, if they think it's annual, then we could, at the appropriate time, bring forward a proposed agenda that Ashley can put together.
Even just getting something on a calendar before people make plans and
Yeah.
can't make it. I think that's always
Hmm.
a challenge with this board too. People will schedule around things usually if they know about them.
And that may be a significant chunk of time, so that'd be good to go in time early.
That was my only two thoughts.
Great. Then we'll go to executive session. Actually, you want to stay for a second?
Purpose of executive session is to discuss the employment history of individuals within the corporation.
Would you mind repeating that portion?
Sure. We're gonna go to executive session to discuss employment matters.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Tom, you're gonna summarize actions?
There were no actions taken
Yeah.
during executive session. The discussion was about a proposed resolution that will be discussed tomorrow, committee, the committee of the board.
All right,
Motion to adjourn,
motion.
second,
Same.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.